Hello everyone and welcome to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy presented by Spellhold Games. My name's Eugene and I'll be your commentator for this round 1 from February 15th. Let's get into it. On the left, we have Arya playing 8 cast. This is a mono blue artifact deck that has overwhelming presence on the first few turns of the game, casting all sorts of 0 and 1 drops to get a huge board presence to overwhelm your opponent very early. And on the right, we have Francisco playing Yorion DnT. This is a normal Yorion or a DnT list. Nothing normal about it. It has an additional 20 cards because of this guy, the companion that he's playing. Needing an additional 20 cards to play. It has all sorts of enter the battlefield effects, things that he can flicker with Yorion if he can get it down. Enough about the decks, though. Let's get right into it. So we have Francisco on the play here, starting out with a turn 1 Aether Vial. This is going to allow him to play around counter magic, as he can put any number, or he can tap that artifact and get anything into play with the equal to the number of charge counters on the Aether Vial. Excuse the word salad I got going on there. Thus not casting the spells, but just putting it right into play. We see Arya casting a few new cards here. Well, casting a few cards. The Seed of the Synod is actually an artifact land, so it counts as an artifact in play. Mishra's Bauble coming down, and we see Emery, Lurker of the Loch, coming down. It's going to mill 4 cards into the grave, and has a reduced casting cost. Since she already had 2 artifacts in play, only cost 1 blue to cast. This card is extremely strong, as it allows her to bring back any artifact from the grave if she can tap it. Unfortunately, it is dead. And then we see a Wasteland to that Seed of the Synod. Want to highlight the Shadow Spear as well. Mox Opal being able to tap for any colored mana as long as she has 3 artifacts in play, which she does. And the Shadow Spear giving +1/+1, trample, and lifelink, or paying 1 to have permanents your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. We see an Urza Saga come down on her side. This is going to be able to create a win condition with the colorless constructs that can get +1/+1 for each artifact that she controls. Because this is such an artifact-centric deck, Urza Saga is even stronger than it usually is in most decks, as the constructs are anywhere between like 5/5s to even 10/10s when they come into play. On Francisco's side, we see him play Mother of Runes. Unfortunately, the Mother of Runes does say target creature you control gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Most of the threats on Arya's side are going to be colorless, which cannot be named with the Mother of Runes. Only Giver of Runes has that ability. We see a Ancient Tomb coming down on Arya's side. She can tap that for 2 mana. We see the Mox Opal floating 1 mana, playing another Mox Opal. This is a legendary artifact, so she can only have 1 in play at a time. Casting Thoughtcast. Thoughtcast costing 5 at sorcery speed, but it does have affinity for artifacts, so most of the time in decks like this, says pay 1 blue, draw 2 cards. We see an Urza's Bauble come down, so she's got both an Urza's Bauble and a Mishra's Bauble. Urza's Bauble allowing her to look at 1 random card from her opponent's hand at any given time. And Mishra's Bauble looking at the top card of an opponent's deck at any given time if they are sacrificed. We see Cathar Commando coming down on Francisco's side. Wasteland for Francisco, trying to catch the Urza Saga. Does have 2 counters on it, though, so she's going to activate it in response, getting that construct. Cathar Commando, a pretty good card here, as it can be sacrificed to destroy target artifact or enchantment at any given time. We see a Swords to Plowshares coming for that construct that was created. It was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, so she gained 5 life off of that, up to 23, even with the Cathar Commando attacking, so she was probably at 26, then another 3 in. We see another Ancient Tomb coming down, so she can make 5 mana right now. This is going to be a Psi Master Thopterist. This is a 3-cast 1/4 legendary creature. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. And at any given time, she can pay 2 to sacrifice 2 artifacts and draw a card. So this card can kind of create an engine. Well, maybe not an engine, but with so many zero cast artifacts in the deck, it can create a overwhelming advantage of 1/1 flyers for her if she can draw a bunch of cards with things like Thought Cast or Thought Monitor. Francisco still only has one planes in play, but that's because he's been using all of his other cards that he's been drawing, the Wastelands, to try and deny Arya as much mana as possible. But with that Mox Opal in play, she still has access to colored mana. Although these Ancient Tombs are dealing a lot of damage, those Swords to Plowshares has gained her a lot of life. So she's only at 14 right now, even though she's tapped them pretty much every turn. The Urza's Bauble revealed another Wasteland in Francisco's hand, so she's clear to get some cards down this turn. Doesn't have to worry. Thinking about it. Has the Mox Opal, has access to 5 mana here, would take 4 damage to generate 5 mana. Gonna tap the Opal. Think she has another Opal in her hand. 3 mana. Down to 12. Down to 10. Oh, tapped them both. Casting the Thought Monitor. So Thought Monitor is kind of like Thought Cast, but it's a 7 mana 2/2 flyer, affinity for artifacts, and when it enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. So she casts the Thought Monitor. That's going to get her 1 Thopter. Then she casts Pithing Needle, naming Mother of Runes. Mother of Runes can no longer tap to provide colored protection for any of her creatures. It just shuts down the activated abilities. And what was the third artifact? I think this is a new Mox Opal that was just cast as well. Attacking for 1 damage with Psy. Down to 19 versus 10. Aether Vial up to 3. This is a good number for Aether Vial to be on, unless Francisco is trying to go all the way down or all the way up to 5 to get Yorion in play. And we see Francisco play a Wasteland, passing the turn, nothing super important in his hand. Arya taking a look here. She's going to be able to cast an artifact from her grave, another Thought Monitor. So she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what was that? The Thought Cast, the Thought Monitor cost 6. So that was kind of another free cast there for 1. Oh, because of all the Thopters, that's right. They're all artifacts as well. So she had plenty of artifacts to bring that down to casting cost 1 to play a 2/2 flyer and draw 2 cards. Pretty good. We see her attack for 5. Pass the turn back to Francisco. 3 mana. Aether Vial still on 3. Thinking about it, still has that Cathar Commando that he can fire off there if he wants. We see Athalia, Guardian of Thraben, trying to be resolved. Arya does have the Force of Will. That's going to bring her down to 9, but she's got things pretty well in control at this point. The Cathar Commando can't even be given protection because all of these Thopters are colorless. And the Pithing Needle also is shutting down the Mother of Runes. So protection not a super important thing here. Using the Bauble to draw 2 cards. Or draw a card for turn and then draw a card for the Bauble. See the Synod coming down, another affinity up. Activating Emery to get a 3rd Thought Monitor. So that's another Thopter, 6 Thopters in play, 5 of them can attack, drawing 2 cards. So paying 2 life to equip the Shadow Spear, and Francisco's going to say, okay, that's enough. So we're going to go to game 2 here. Francisco starting out with the play of the turn 1 Mother of Runes. We're going to see Engineered Explosives come down on 1. Engineered Explosives, you pay Sunburst into it, so however many colors you put into it is how many counters it gets. Since it was only 1 blue, it only gets 1 counter, and you can pay 2 at any given time to blow up all non-land permanents that have that kind of converted mana cost. So Arya can blow up the Mother of Runes here if she wants. The Mother of Runes can't give protection in response. Well, it can to other creatures, but it won't save it from the engineered explosives. We're going to see Caracas come down on Francisco's side. This is actually a fairly important play here, as it can bounce a legendary creature. And as we saw from the last game, the two legendary creatures in Arya's deck are Emery and Sai. So Emery came down, milled some cards, and went right back to Arya's hand. We saw Dismember come down and get that Mother of Runes and get it out of there. Wasteland coming down, blowing up the Urza Saga. Taking another look with another Urza's Bauble there, getting to draw extra cards. Ancient Tomb, Mox Opal. Mox Opal not doing a lot here until she gets down a third artifact. It's just kind of sitting around until that time. Playing Emery for 4 more cards into the grave. It is a 1/4. Francisco doesn't have much else to do, so he just puts it right back in her hand. 3 mana now on Francisco's side. He's going to read Engineered Explosives just to make sure he knows exactly what its capabilities are. Looks like he's got a Batter Skull in hand. He's going to go for a Skyclave Apparition here. And if this resolves, it does not, so it doesn't matter. Force of Will is going to catch that Skyclave Apparition. Believe that brings Arya down to 19. Oh, right. She's been tapping the Ancient Tomb quite a bit here, so she's already down to 12. 3 mana for Sai Master Thopterist. This is another legendary creature, but with it being in play, she can cast a few 0 converted mana cost artifacts, and that's going to get her some Thopters. Unfortunately, she couldn't tap that Mox Opal since she did not have 3 artifacts at the time, but now that the replacement Mox Opal is in play, the Thopter will give her the Metalcraft that she needs in case she needs to tap the Mox Opal for something. We are going to see a Flicker Wisp come down here, and that's going to get rid of the Thopter. As if you flicker a token, then it does not come back into play with the Flicker Wisp effect at end of turn. And the Caracas is going to send Sai back to her hand as well. A little bit of a tough spot here. We're seeing a Thought Cast being cast for 3 with the mana reduction of the Engineered Explosives and Mox Opal. And then 1 mana for a Retrofitter Foundry. Retrofitter Foundry, a pretty useful card, especially in this deck that generates so many Thopters. The Thopters can be immediately turned into 4/4 Golems. We see Umezawa's Jite coming down. So this is a fairly strong card, an equipment that has the ability that says whenever this creature deals combat damage, put 2 charge counters on Umezawa's Jite, and you can choose basically to do one of 3 abilities at any time. You can pop a counter to gain 2 life, or you can pump the creature it is attached to for +2/+2 until end of turn, or you can give any other creature in play -1/-1 until end of turn. This is traditionally an extremely strong card in the DnT list. It has been on the chopping block a little bit now, ever since the printing of Cauldron Complete, and Lion Sash might give it a run for its money, put the final nail in its coffin, but with the Yorion list being able to run at least 1 extra equipment, maybe even 2, I think Umezawa's Jite will stick around in the 80-card list for at least a little bit longer. We'll see how strong Lion Sash ends up being, since it's really good to be able to eat any card from the grave and give a +1/+1 counter to your creature. But Umezawa's Jite is still very good at removing all sorts of 1/1s and 2/2s. We see Sai coming back down and getting 1 more Thopter. So this interaction here is a little confusing. Francisco tried to kill the Thopter. In response, Arya turned it into a 4/4, and then he tried to use the extra counter to kill it again. But because of how Retrofitter Foundry reads, sacrificing the creature is a part of the cost, so Francisco does not have any time to kill it because it is already dead and turned into a 4/4. But didn't really matter because instead of killing it, he turned his Flicker Wisp into a 5/3 for the turn and dealt the final blow. So we are here on game 3. Arya starting off super strong here. Lotus Petal into Mishra's Bauble, or Urza's Bauble into Urza's Saga into playing Emery. So multiple cards in the grave at this point. Going to read Emery one more time. So if Emery sticks around, she can tap it to allow one of these cards to be cast out of the grave. And usually grabbing a 0 cast is a good choice here, like Lotus Petal, so she has extra mana to access. Ancient Tomb coming down. She's still thinking about her play. Tapping Emery to get that Lotus Petal. And passing it back. The Plains coming down is going to... Oh! Tried to do a Swords to Plowshares there, but Force of Will caught it instead. And so she still has access to the Emery. Another Urza Saga coming down. Casting another Lotus Petal out of the grave. That's going to get a Thought Monitor. This is a fun interaction. So that Lotus Petal was required to hit the correct affinity number. And when the Thought Monitor went on the stack, the declaration to cast the spell was put first and checked the amount of artifacts in play. And then the Lotus Petal was sacrificed to give the correct amount of blue mana for the spell. And so the affinity was filled and the casting cost was filled. Therefore, the spell does resolve. I thought that was kind of fun. The last 2 cards out of Arya's hand is going to be Force of Will and a blue card to counter Rest in Peace, which would have been an extremely strong play here, as Arya's game plan is currently cast spells out of the grave with Emery. She is going to do that exact thing. Casting Retrofitter Foundry. She has quite a bit of mana here, as well as an Urza Saga. We see 2 Mother of Runes coming down on Francisco's side. Urza Saga going to be activated for one of those Constructs, which is currently a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are both 8 8s, 9 9s, as that Pithing Needle comes down, naming Mother of Runes. So these are 2 huge honkin' fellas there. Only one has Summoning Sickness. So counting up, coming to the same conclusion that I'll just count it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the other Lotus Petal makes 10. So that's going to be 10 on the ground, 2 in the air, going down to 16. Francisco drawing one more card to see if it's going to be enough. And unfortunately, no. So he extends the hand, and that will be the end of round 1. Arya takes it. All right. We will see you next time. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, as it helps boost our numbers. We'll see you in round 2.